Picture this. You're the only human in a galaxy where every other species sees you as nothing more than a primitive scavenger. They laugh at your blunt teeth, mock your lack of claws, and dismiss your slow reflexes. You're given the most dangerous, impossible missions because they assume you'll fail anyway. But what they don't understand is that humans didn't climb to the top of Earth's food chain through strength or speed. We got there through something far more terrifying. Our refusal to give up, our ability to think 3 steps ahead, and our talent for turning every disadvantage into a weapon. Today, you're about to remind the entire galaxy why Earth's apex predator doesn't need fangs to be absolutely lethal. They wanted to see what a human could do when pushed to the limit. They're about to find out, and they're going to regret asking the question. Marcus Chen stood in the sterile corridor of the Galactic Enforcement Bureau, watching through reinforced transparent aluminum as his new teammates sized him up like a piece of defective equipment. The Corvin security chief, a towering reptilian creature named Thex, flicked his forked tongue dismissively while examining Marcus's file on his datapad. His scales shifted from dark green to an irritated yellow, a clear sign of his displeasure. "This is what High Command sends us?" Thex's voice carried the harsh, guttural tone typical of his species. His clawed finger tapped against the screen, showing Marcus's photograph. A human? For Operation Deep Strike? The mission briefing room felt more like a tribunal than a planning session. Marcus remained standing while the other team members, all seasoned operatives from various alien species, took their seats around the circular table. The holographic display in the center showed a 3-dimensional map of the Xerian system, specifically highlighting the fortress moon of Keth Prime where their target was hiding. Commander Zala, an Exari with 4 arms and skin that changed color with her emotions, activated the main display. Her skin apparently showed deep purple streaks, indicating professional focus mixed with underlying concern. The target is Warlord Krex, responsible for the massacre of 3 civilian colonies in the Outer Rim. Intelligence indicates he's fortified himself on Keth Prime with approximately 2,000 mercenaries and state-of-the-art defensive systems. Marcus studied the hologram carefully, noting the fortress's position on the moon's surface, the orbital defense platforms, and the natural rock formations that could provide cover. His mind was already working through possibilities, calculating angles and timing, but he kept his expression neutral. Years of being underestimated had taught him the value of letting others reveal their assumptions before showing his hand. "The fortress is built into a mountain face," continued Zala, her upper left arm gesturing to highlight specific features. "Sensor-proof barriers, energy shields, and automated defense turrets covering all approaches. Previous attempts by local forces have resulted in total casualties. Sergeant Vorth, a massive Brogarian whose species was known for their incredible strength and thick armor-like hide, leaned forward. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. 6 being team for assault on fortified position defended by 2,000 hostiles. Acceptable odds for proper warriors." His small dark eyes fixed on Marcus with obvious skepticism. But why burden team with weak human? The question hung in the air like a physical weight. Marcus had heard variations of it countless times since joining the Bureau 18 months ago. Humans were still relatively new to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years earlier. Most species viewed them as an oddity at best, a liability at worst. Dr. Yelana, the team's Zenthari medic and tech specialist, spoke up in her characteristic whisper-soft voice. Her people communicated primarily through subsonic frequencies, making audible speech an effort for them. Human physiology shows interesting adaptations. Endurance capabilities exceed galactic average by significant margin. Problem-solving scores consistently high across species testing protocols. "Pretty words," Thex interrupted, his tail lashing behind him in agitation. "But this mission requires warriors, not marathon runners and puzzle solvers. Human has no natural weapons, no enhanced sensors, no protective hide or scales. One hit from enemy plasma rifle and he becomes decorative stain on wall." Marcus finally spoke, his voice calm and measured. "Permission to examine the tactical data in detail, Commander?" Zala's skin shifted to include curious orange patterns. "Granted." Marcus approached the holographic display, studying it from multiple angles. The fortress was indeed imposing, carved directly into the mountain with only one apparent entrance, a heavily fortified gate complex. Multiple weapon emplacements provided overlapping fields of fire across the approach. Orbital platforms would detect any aerial assault long before it reached the surface. "What's the timeline for this operation?" Marcus asked. 72 hours, Zala replied. "Intelligence suggests Krex is preparing to relocate his operation. If we miss this window, tracking him again could take months or years."
Marcus nodded slowly, continuing his examination of the fortress layout.
He noticed something the others seemed to have missed, a detail in the geological survey data that accompanied the military intelligence. The mountain contains extensive natural cave systems, he observed, highlighting a section of the data with his finger. These formations extend well beyond the fortress perimeter. Verth snorted, a sound like steam escaping from a pressure valve. Caves collapsed or sealed. Krex not stupid enough to leave back door open. The recent geological surveys show seismic activity in the region, Marcus continued, pulling up additional data. Minor tremors, but consistent. The cave system is still active, still changing. Operative Kess, a Quillan whose mantis-like appearance and 4-meter height made him the team's designated infiltration specialist, clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Interesting observation, but caves could be monitored, trapped, or simply impassable. Marcus turned to face the team, his expression serious but confident. I'm not suggesting we use existing caves. I'm suggesting we make our own. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of the ship's environmental systems. Thex's scales shifted to a deeper yellow, now approaching orange, indicating his transition from irritation to outright anger. Human proposes what exactly? Thex's voice carried a dangerous edge. That we dig tunnel like primitive Earth creatures? With what equipment? What excavation time? This grows more ridiculous with each breath human wastes. Dodd dig, Marcus said simply. Mine. He manipulated the holographic display, zooming in on a specific area of the mountain approximately 2 kilometers from the fortress. The geological data shows a natural fault line here, probably created by the same seismic activity I mentioned. If we place shaped charges at specific stress points along this fault, we can create a controlled cave-in that opens a direct passage toward the fortress interior. Dr. Rieg. Yelana leaned forward, her large compound eyes reflecting the hologram's light. Dangerous. Uncontrolled collapse could bury team. Also, explosive detonations would alert fortress defenders. Not if we time it correctly, Marcus replied. The seismic activity provides natural cover. We set the charges to detonate during the next predicted tremor. The fortress sensors will register it as a natural seismic event, not an attack. Kess clicked his mandibles again, a sign of interest among his species. Assuming tunnel creation succeeds without burial of team, how does this provide tactical advantage? Still facing 2,000 defenders in fortified position. Marcus smiled for the first time since entering the room. Because we won't be attacking the fortress. We'll be attacking from inside the mountain itself. He highlighted another section of the geological data, showing the internal structure of the fortress. The mountain contains significant metallic ore deposits. That's why Krex chose this location. The natural interference provides additional sensor protection, but it also means the fortress had to be built around the existing mineral veins. Zala's skin began showing yellow streaks of understanding, mixed with her purple focus patterns. Structural weak points. Exactly, Marcus confirmed. The fortress looks impregnable from the outside because that's where they expect attacks to come from. But the internal structure has to accommodate the natural ore veins, creating architectural compromises. If we can access the mountain's interior, we can target the fortress's structural supports directly. Forth grunted, his version of grudging interest. Humans suggest bringing down entire mountain on target? Partially, Marcus said. Controlled structural collapse of key support sections. We create a situation where Krex's own fortress becomes a trap. His forces will be scattered, confused, dealing with structural failures and cave-ins. Meanwhile, we extract the target in the chaos. Bex's scales had shifted back toward green, though still tinged with yellow skepticism. Plan sounds like human fever dream. Too many variables. Too much depends on theoretical geological predictions. All military operations depend on incomplete information and calculated risks, Marcus pointed out. The difference here is that we're using the environment as a weapon instead of fighting against it. That's basic human tactical doctrine. Commander Zala studied the data for several long moments, her skin cycling through various color combinations as she processed the information. Finally, she spoke. The approach has merit. Unconventional, but potentially effective against a target who's prepared for conventional assault. Commander, Thex protested, his tail lashing more vigorously. You cannot seriously consider this amateur's geology lesson as basis for military operation. I'm considering all options, Sergeant, Zala replied, her tone carrying the authority of command. Our previous intelligence suggested this mission had a low probability of success using standard assault tactics. Agent Chen's proposal offers a different approach. Dr. Yelana spoke up again, her whisper-soft voice requiring everyone to strain slightly to hear her. Human plan requires precise timing, accurate geological prediction, and expertise in controlled demolition. Does human possess these capabilities? Marcus nodded. Before joining the Bureau, I worked in asteroid mining operations, specifically controlled extraction from unstable ore bodies. I've planned and executed over 200 successful excavation operations in similar geological conditions. The information seemed to shift the room's atmosphere slightly. Even Thex's aggressive posturing decreased as he processed this new data about the human's background. Kes spoke next, his compound eyes fixed on Marcus. Assuming tunnel creation succeeds, extraction method for target remains unclear. Fortress interior will still contain significant defensive forces. That's where the rest of the team comes in, Marcus said. Once we've created structural instability, we'll need fast movement through compromised areas. Vorth's strength will be essential for moving debris and creating access points. Kes's infiltration skills will be crucial for navigating the fortress interior during the chaos. Doctor, Yelana's technical expertise will help us disable any security systems we encounter. And Thex? The Corvin asked, his tone still skeptical but no longer openly hostile. Leadership and combat coordination, Marcus replied. Once we're inside the fortress, we'll need someone to direct the team's actions, while I focus on the structural engineering aspects. Marcus paused, then added, the success of this mission depends on everyone's specialized skills working together. I can create the chaos we need, but I can't extract the target alone. Zala's skin had settled into a pattern of blue and green, indicating thoughtful consideration. Agent Chen, what's your assessment of mission success probability using your proposed approach? Marcus considered the question carefully. 70% chance of successful infiltration, 60% chance of target extraction. Combined probability of mission success approximately 42%. Previous tactical assessments suggested 15% success probability, Zala noted. Your approach represents significant improvement in odds. Thex's scales had returned to their normal dark green, though his posture remained tense. Human numbers based on assumption that geological predictions prove accurate. If cave system proves unstable or seismic timing fails, team casualties become certainty.
Quote, true, Marcus acknowledged. But the current plan's 15% success rate assumes we can even reach the fortress gates, which intelligence suggests is unlikely given the orbital defenses and ground-based sensors.
The room fell silent again as the team absorbed this information. Marcus could see them weighing the risks, calculating their chances, considering alternatives that none of them could identify. Finally, Vorth spoke, his rumbling voice thoughtful. Human plan unusual, dangerous, but current odds unacceptable for experienced warriors. Perhaps worth attempting human approach. Dr. Cam? Yelana nodded agreement. Geological data supports human seismic predictions. Plan shows creativity and technical understanding. Risk assessment appears sound. Cass clicked his mandibles in a pattern Marcus had learned indicated agreement among the Quillen. Infiltration through structural collapse offers tactical advantage. Fortress defenders will be responding to crisis, not organized assault. All eyes turned to Thex, whose opinion as security chief carried significant weight. The Corvin remained silent for nearly a minute, his scales shifting through subtle color variations that indicated deep thought. Human plan requires trust, he said finally. Trust that human calculations prove correct. Trust that human expertise matches claims. Trust that human will not fail team when mission depends on geological theories. Marcus met Thex's gaze steadily. I understand the responsibility. I won't let the team down. Thex studied him for another long moment, then nodded slowly. Very well, but if human plan fails and team faces death because of geological miscalculation, human dies first. It wasn't exactly a vote of confidence, but Marcus recognized it as the closest thing to acceptance he was likely to get from the Corvin. Commander Zala stood, her skin now showing patterns of determination and resolve. Agent Chen's proposal is approved. We'll implement the modified tactical plan with geological infiltration as primary approach. Team has 48 hours to prepare equipment and review detailed mission parameters. As the team began filing out of the briefing room, Marcus remained behind to study the geological data more closely. He was confident in his analysis, but Thex's warning echoed in his mind. The margin for error was thin, and the consequences of failure would affect more than just his own life. Doctor. Yelana approached him as he worked, her soft voice barely audible above the environmental systems. Human shows unusual thinking patterns for military operation. Where did human learn to see problems differently? Marcus looked up from the holographic display. On Earth, humans aren't the strongest or fastest predators. We survived by being smarter, more adaptable. We learned to use tools to change our environment instead of just adapting to it. Interesting evolutionary pressure, Yelana observed. Most species develop physical advantages or enhanced senses. Humans developed problem-solving capabilities.
It served us well, Marcus said.
Even when others expect us to fail. As Dr. Yelana left the briefing room, Marcus returned his attention to the geological data. Tomorrow, they would begin the most dangerous mission of his career, using a plan that no other species would have considered. The irony wasn't lost on him that his teammates' initial skepticism about human capabilities might be exactly what made those capabilities effective. In 48 hours, they would discover whether human ingenuity could succeed where conventional tactics had failed. Marcus intended to make sure that when the dust settled, both literally and figuratively, the galaxy would have a new understanding of what humans could accomplish when properly motivated. The fortress on Keth Prime had been designed to withstand any attack its builders could imagine. Unfortunately for Warlord Krex, they had never imagined facing a human who specialized in making the impossible look routine. The equipment bay of the transport ship hummed with activity as Marcus carefully arranged the specialized charges he would need for the geological assault. Each device had been modified according to his specifications, shaped to create precise fracture patterns rather than simple destructive explosions. The other team members watched with varying degrees of curiosity and skepticism as he worked. Human uses strange configurations, Vorth observed, lifting one of the modified charges with ease despite its considerable weight. Explosive devices appear weaker than standard demolition equipment. Marcus looked up from the detonator array he was programming. They're not designed to destroy everything in their path. We need controlled fractures that follow the natural stress lines in the rock formation. Too much explosive force and we bring down the entire mountain. Too little and we don't create a usable passage. Thex approached the workstation, his scales showing the neutral dark green that indicated professional interest.
Explain human theory.
How does weak explosion create passage through solid rock? Marcus picked up a piece of the synthetic stone material used for target practice, holding it so the others could see. Most species approach obstacles by applying maximum force directly. But rock formations have internal weaknesses, stress points where geological pressure has created natural fracture lines. He placed the stone on the workbench and tapped it with a small tool at a specific point. The stone split cleanly along an almost invisible line. The trick is reading the geological structure correctly and applying force at precisely the right location with exactly the right intensity. Marcus continued. Too much force and the fracture spreads unpredictably. Too little and nothing happens. Doctor, Yelana examined one of the modified charges through her compound eyes, her technical expertise evident in the careful way she studied the device. Sophisticated approach. Requires detailed understanding of geological stress patterns and precise calculation of explosive force vectors. It's not that complicated once you understand the basic principles, Marcus said. Humans have been mining and quarrying for thousands of years. We learned early that working with natural forces is more efficient than fighting against them. Kess clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Human confidence in geological predictions remains a concerning factor. Seismic activity follows patterns, but patterns can change without warning. Quote. Marcus nodded acknowledgement. True. That's why I've prepared 3 different charge configurations, each designed for different geological conditions. We'll make final decisions based on real-time sensor readings when we reach the target zone. Commander Zala entered the equipment bay, her skin showing the focused purple patterns that indicated mission preparation mode. Status report. Are we ready for deployment? Equipment preparation complete, Marcus replied. Geological mapping updated, with latest seismic data. Charge configurations tested and verified. Thex stepped forward, his posture formal. Security assessment. Mission parameters reviewed, and contingency plans established. Team ready for operational deployment. The transport ship shuddered slightly as it dropped out of hyperspace, the artificial gravity compensating for the transition. Through the viewport, Marcus could see the Zirian system's primary star casting harsh light across the rocky surfaces of its numerous moons and asteroids. Keth Prime appeared as a dark sphere against the starfield, its surface showing the natural browns and greys of raw stone. Orbital approach initiated, announced the ship's pilot over the communication system. Estimated time to drop zone, 47 minutes. Marcus used the time to review the geological data one final time, cross-referencing the seismic predictions with real-time sensor readings. The natural tremor activity was following the expected pattern, with the next significant event predicted to occur in approximately 6 hours. Perfect timing for their infiltration attempt. Vorth approached his position, the Bulgarian's massive frame making the already crowded equipment bay feel smaller. Question for human. What happens if geological prediction proves incorrect? What if seismic activity stops or changes pattern? Then we adapt, Marcus replied simply. Humans are good at improvisation. If the natural seismic cover isn't available, we create our own distraction. How? Thex asked, his curiosity overriding his skepticism. Marcus smiled slightly. We make enough noise somewhere else to mask our real operation. A diversionary explosion on the opposite side of the mountain, timed to occur simultaneously with our charges. The fortress sensors will detect the obvious threat while missing the real one. Dr. Yelana's whisper-soft voice carried a note of approval. Deception tactics. Human uses enemy expectations against them. The transport ship began its final approach to Keth Prime, staying well outside the detection range of the fortress's orbital sensors. The planet's surface grew larger in the viewport, revealing the harsh, mountainous terrain that made conventional assaults so difficult. Drop zone coordinates confirmed, the pilot announced. Surface conditions nominal. Atmospheric composition within acceptable parameters for all species aboard. Marcus gathered his equipment, checking each piece one final time. The modified charges, detonator controls, geological sensors, and emergency supplies all fit into a compact pack designed for rough terrain movement. The weight was significant but manageable for someone with his experience in similar operations. Remember, Commander Zala addressed the team as they prepared for deployment. Once we're on the surface, communication with orbital support will be limited by the mountain's mineral content. We're on our own until mission completion. The transport ship settled onto the rocky surface with minimal vibration, its landing systems compensating for the uneven terrain. Through the viewport, Marcus could see their destination, a towering mountain peak that rose nearly 3 kilometers above the surrounding landscape, its summit crowned by the visible structures of Warlord Krex's fortress. External atmosphere confirmed safe, the pilot reported. Deploying team in 3 minutes. Marcus felt the familiar pre-mission tension that always accompanied dangerous operations. Unlike fear or anxiety, this was a heightened state of awareness, his mind automatically reviewing procedures and contingencies while his body prepared for the physical demands ahead. The cargo bay doors opened with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. The surface of Keth Prime stretched before them, a desolate landscape of rocky outcroppings and scattered boulders under a pale yellow sky. The mountain containing their target dominated the horizon, its sheer walls rising almost vertically from the surrounding terrain. Visual confirmation of target, Thex reported, studying the fortress through enhanced optical equipment. Defensive positions active. No indication of increased alert status. The team moved away from the transport ship in tactical formation, with Kess taking point due to his superior stealth capabilities. Marcus followed closely behind, his geological sensors already taking readings of the subsurface structure. The data confirmed his predictions. The fault line was exactly where the orbital surveys had indicated, and the stress patterns showed the expected characteristics. They covered the 2 kilometers to their infiltration point in just over an hour, moving carefully through the rocky terrain to avoid detection. The fortress's sensor range didn't extend this far from the mountain, but caution was essential to avoid compromising the mission before it began. Marcus set up his equipment at the predetermined location, a natural depression in the rocky surface that provided concealment while allowing access to the underground fault line. The geological sensors confirmed the subsurface conditions, showing the fault line extending deep into the mountain's interior. Seismic prediction holding steady, he reported to the team. Next tremor event in 4 hours 53 minutes. Charge placement will take approximately 3 hours. Dr. Yelana activated her technical equipment, scanning for any electronic surveillance that might detect their activities. No sensor coverage at current position. Electronic countermeasures active and functioning. Marcus began the delicate process of placing the shaped charges along the fault line. Each device had to be positioned at exactly the right depth and angle to create the desired fracture pattern. The work required careful excavation and precise measurement, tasks that his mining background had prepared him for extensively. Verth and Kess established a security perimeter, while Thex monitored communications and maintained tactical awareness. The operation proceeded smoothly, each team member contributing their specialized skills to the overall mission success. As Marcus worked, he found himself thinking about the reactions he'd received during the mission briefing. The assumption that humans were weak or unsuitable for military operations was common throughout the galaxy, based on superficial comparisons of physical characteristics. What most species failed to understand was that human evolution had taken a different path, developing intelligence and adaptability rather than natural weapons or enhanced physical capabilities. Charge placement 70% complete, Marcus reported after nearly 3 hours of careful work. Detonation sequence programmed and tested. Timing synchronization confirmed with seismic prediction models. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the rocky landscape as the team prepared for the most critical phase of their operation. In less than 2 hours, they would attempt something that no military force in the galaxy had ever tried, using controlled geological manipulation as a method of fortress assault. Dr. Borrow. Yelana approached Marcus as he made final adjustments to the detonation sequence. Question regarding human confidence levels. Does human feel certainty about operation success? Marcus considered the question carefully. Confidence, yes. Certainty, no. There are always variables in complex operations that can't be fully predicted, but I believe we have the best possible plan given the available information and resources. Human answer shows wisdom, Yelana observed. Overconfidence causes more operation failures than lack of skill. Tex joined their conversation, his scales showing the focused green patterns that indicated preparation for action. Final security sweep complete. No indication of enemy detection. All team members ready for infiltration phase. Marcus completed the last connections in the detonation array, double-checking each circuit and timer setting. The charges were now linked in a carefully calculated sequence that would create progressive fractures along the fault line, opening a passage that led directly toward the fortress's foundation. System activation in 90 minutes, he announced. Once the charges detonate, we'll have approximately 15 minutes to enter the newly created tunnel system before the fortress sensors complete their analysis of the seismic event. Commander Zala's voice crackled through their communication devices, transmitted from her position with the orbital support team. Fortress activity levels remain normal. No indication of increased security measures or unusual defensive preparations. The waiting period before action was always the most difficult part of any operation. Marcus used the time to review the fortress's internal structure one more time, memorizing the layout and identifying the critical support points that would need to be targeted once they gained access to the mountain's interior. Cass approached from his observation position, his compound eyes reflecting the late afternoon light. Question regarding post-infiltration tactics. Once tunnel access achieved, what specific targets human prioritizes for structural assault? Marcus activated his portable holographic display showing the three-dimensional model of the fortress's internal structure. Primary targets are the main support columns here, here, and here, he said, highlighting specific points. These bear the greatest structural load, and their failure would create maximum disruption with minimal explosive requirements. Secondary targets? Dex asked. The power generation facility and the main computer core, Marcus replied. Taking out the power will disable most of the automated defense systems, and destroying the computer core will prevent coordinated response from the garrison forces. Borth studied the holographic model with professional interest. Human plan requires precise movement through hostile environment while carrying demolition equipment. Significant tactical challenge. That's why we'll be moving during maximum confusion, Marcus pointed out. Once the structural supports start failing, the entire fortress will be experiencing emergency conditions. Krex's forces will be responding to crisis situations, not searching for infiltrators. Doctor. Yelana checked her chronometer, her whisper-soft voice carrying a note of tension. Detonation sequence activation in 30 minutes. All team members should complete final equipment checks. Marcus verified his gear one last time. Backup charges, electronic detonators, geological sensors, emergency supplies, and personal weapons. Everything was in order, ready for the most unconventional fortress assault in galactic military history. As the final minutes counted down, Marcus found himself oddly calm. The preparation was complete, the plan was sound, and his teammates, despite their initial skepticism, had proven themselves competent professionals. Whatever happened in the next few hours, they would face it together as a team. Detonation sequence activating in 60 seconds, he announced, his finger poised over the primary trigger. All team members prepare for immediate tunnel entry upon successful charge detonation. The rocky landscape around them seemed to hold its breath as the final countdown began. In less than a minute, they would discover whether human ingenuity and geological science could succeed where conventional military tactics had failed. Marcus pressed the activation sequence at precisely the calculated moment, just as the natural seismic sensors detected the beginning tremors of the predicted earthquake. The charges detonated in perfect sequence, their carefully shaped explosions creating exactly the fracture pattern he had calculated. The ground shook with what appeared to be natural seismic activity, masking the artificial explosions perfectly. When the tremors subsided, a dark opening had appeared in the rocky surface, leading down into the mountain's interior, just as Marcus had predicted. Tunnel access achieved, he reported with quiet satisfaction. Infiltration begins now. The newly created tunnel entrance yawned before them like the mouth of some ancient cave system, exactly as Marcus had calculated. The shaped charges had performed perfectly, following the natural fault lines to create a passage that appeared to be the result of seismic activity rather than deliberate excavation. Emergency lighting from their equipment cast dancing shadows on the rough stone walls as the team prepared to enter. Atmospheric readings normal, Dr. Pran. Yelena reported, her sensitive equipment detecting air composition and pressure levels. No toxic gases or dangerous particulate matter detected in tunnel system. Marcus led the way into the passage, his geological sensors providing real-time data about the surrounding rock structure. The tunnel extended roughly 30 meters before opening into a natural cave system that his calculations had predicted would exist. The combination of artificial fracturing and natural geological formations created exactly the access route they needed. Structural integrity holding, he reported, as they moved deeper into the mountain. No sign of unstable formations or collapse potential. Thex followed closely behind, his enhanced night vision providing security coverage while Marcus focused on navigation. Human geological predictions proving accurate so far. Tunnel system appears stable and secure. The cave system extended much further than Marcus had initially expected, with multiple branches leading in different directions through the mountain's interior. His sensors indicated they were moving steadily toward the fortress foundation, but the journey would take longer than originally calculated. Distance to target reduced to approximately 800 meters, Marcus announced after they had traveled for nearly an hour. Cave system provides excellent concealment, but progress slower than anticipated. Kess moved ahead of the group, his natural stealth abilities allowing him to scout the passage while remaining virtually undetectable. His compound eyes could detect subtle changes in light and movement that might indicate danger ahead. Passage clear for next 50 meters, Kess reported through their communication system. Natural cave formation continues toward target direction. As they progressed deeper into the mountain, Marcus began detecting signs that they were approaching the fortress foundation. His sensors showed artificial materials mixed with the natural rock formations, indicating construction activity in the surrounding area. We're close, he told the team. Sensor readings show metal reinforcement and synthetic materials within 20 meters of our current position. Dr. Yelena activated her technical equipment, scanning for electronic systems and energy signatures that would indicate fortress operations nearby, detecting power conduits and data transmission lines. Fortress electrical systems approximately 15 meters above current position. Marcus studied his portable geological display, comparing the real-time sensor data with the fortress blueprints they had obtained during mission planning. The cave system had brought them to within striking distance of the main power generation facility, exactly as he had hoped. Perfect positioning, he said with quiet satisfaction. We can access the fortress power systems from here without entering the main structure. Vorth examined the rocky ceiling above them, his enhanced strength allowing him to test the structural integrity by applying measured pressure to key points. Rock formation solid but workable. Brogarian strength sufficient to create access opening if required. Marcus shook his head. We don't need to break through. The power conduits pass through natural gaps in the rock formation here. He pointed to a section where his sensors detected a significant gap between rock layers. If we can access those conduits directly, we can disable the fortress power systems without creating obvious evidence of sabotage. Thex's scales shifted to show tactical interest as he studied Marcus's plan. Explain human strategy. How does power system sabotage create tactical advantage for target extraction? Marcus activated his holographic display, showing the fortress layout with power distribution highlighted in different colors. Without main power, the fortress loses automated defenses, electronic surveillance, environmental control, and communication systems. The garrison will be operating in emergency conditions with limited coordination capability. Emergency power systems? Kess asked. Most military installations maintain backup power for critical operations.
Yes, but backup systems provide only essential functions.
Marcus replied. Life support, emergency lighting, basic communications. All the sophisticated defense systems require main power to operate effectively. Doctor. Yelena moved closer to examine the gap in the rock formation that Marcus had identified. Access to power conduits appears feasible. Technical expertise required to disable systems without creating obvious signs of sabotage. That's where your skills become essential, Marcus told her. I can get us to the power systems, but I'll need your technical knowledge to disable them in a way that appears to be equipment failure rather than enemy action. The team spent the next 30 minutes carefully enlarging the natural gap in the rock formation, creating an opening large enough for Dr. Yelana to access the fortress power conduits. Her small frame and technical expertise made her the logical choice for the delicate sabotage work. Power distribution system accessed, Yelana reported as she worked in the confined space. Configuration more complex than standard military installations. Multiple redundant systems and fail-safe protocols. Marcus monitored the surrounding area for any signs that their activities had been detected while Yelana worked on the power systems. His sensors showed no increase in security activity or changes in the fortress's operational patterns. How long for complete power system compromise? Thex asked. Approximately 20 minutes for primary systems, Yelana replied. Additional 15 minutes for backup power coordination disruption. While Dr. Yelana worked on the technical sabotage, Marcus used the time to study the fortress structure more closely. His sensors were now providing detailed information about the building's internal layout, revealing structural details that hadn't been apparent in the original intelligence reports. Interesting discovery, he announced to the team. The fortress construction incorporated the natural ore veins I mentioned earlier, but they did it differently than I expected. Explain human observation, Forth requested. Marcus highlighted specific sections of his sensor display. Instead of building around the ore veins, they built into them. The metallic ore is actually part of the fortress structure now, providing additional strength and sensor shielding. Thex studied the new information, his tactical expertise immediately recognizing the implications. Structural modification changes demolition requirements. Human calculations based on standard construction methods. Actually, it makes our job easier, Marcus said with a slight smile. Metallic ore veins have different stress characteristics than stone or synthetic materials. If we target the junction points where the natural ore meets the artificial construction, we can create structural failures with much smaller charges. Doctor, Yelana's voice came from inside the power conduit access point, her whisper-soft tone carrying a note of satisfaction. Primary power systems compromised. Implementing cascade failure protocols that will appear to be equipment malfunction. The lights in their immediate area flickered slightly as the fortress power systems began experiencing the carefully orchestrated failures that Yelana was creating. To anyone monitoring the situation from inside the fortress, it would appear that age and stress were finally affecting the facility's electrical infrastructure. Backup power systems activating as expected, Yelana continued. Implementing secondary disruption protocols. Complete power compromise in approximately 10 minutes. Marcus began preparing the shaped charges they would need for the structural assault phase of their mission. Each device had to be precisely configured for the specific materials and stress patterns they had discovered during their reconnaissance. Target priorities updated based on new structural information, he announced. Primary target, ore vein junction points here, here, and here. He highlighted the locations on his display. Secondary targets, main support columns that are now revealed to be more vulnerable than originally calculated. Kess clicked his mandibles in the pattern that indicated tactical approval. Revised plan shows improved success probability. Structural vulnerabilities more significant than initial assessment suggested. The fortress power systems went dark at precisely the moment Dr. Yelana had predicted, plunging the entire facility into emergency lighting conditions. Through the rock above them, they could hear the distant sounds of confusion and activity as the garrison responded to the apparent power failure. Primary objectives achieved, Yelana reported as she emerged from the power conduit access point. Fortress operating on minimal emergency power. Main defense systems offline. Marcus checked his chronometer, calculating the timing for the next phase of their operation. We have approximately 40 minutes before maintenance crews identify and repair the power system damage. Beginning structural assault phase. The team moved deeper into the cave system, following Marcus's guidance toward the critical structural points he had identified. The combination of natural caves and artificial passages created by their earlier explosions provided excellent access to the fortress foundation. First target point reached, Marcus announced as they arrived at a location directly beneath one of the main structural support areas. His sensors showed the junction between natural ore veins and artificial construction materials exactly where he had predicted. Setting the shaped charges required careful calculation of explosive force and placement angle. Too much power and they would bring down more of the structure than intended. Too little and the charges would fail to create the necessary structural damage. Charge placement optimal, Marcus reported, after completing the installation. Detonation will create progressive failure along ore vein junction. Estimated collapse limited to specific structural section. They moved to the second target point, then the third, each time following the same careful process of charge placement and force calculation. The work required precise timing and coordination, but Marcus's mining background had prepared him for exactly this type of technical challenge. All primary charges in place, he announced as they completed the installation sequence. Detonation timing coordinated for maximum structural impact with minimal risk to team safety. Thex studied the positioning of the charges, his military experience allowing him to appreciate the precision of Marcus's work. Human demolition expertise exceeds initial assessment. Structural targeting shows sophisticated understanding of engineering principles. The sounds of activity from above had increased as the fortress garrison struggled to deal with the power failure and its consequences. Emergency protocols were clearly in effect, with personnel responding to what they believed was a critical infrastructure malfunction. Fortress response patterns indicate high stress and confusion levels, Kess observed. Security coordination compromised by communication system limitations. Yolana monitored the facility's electronic systems through her portable equipment. Emergency power holding steady but insufficient for normal operations. Security systems operating at approximately 30% efficiency. Marcus activated the final detonation sequence, timing the charges to create progressive structural failures that would appear to be the result of facility aging and stress rather than deliberate sabotage. Structural charges activating in sequence, he announced. Beginning controlled collapse of targeted support sections. The explosions were much quieter than conventional demolition charges, designed to create specific fracture patterns rather than massive destruction. The sound traveled through the mountain as a series of deep rumbles that could easily be mistaken for continued seismic activity. Above them, the fortress began experiencing exactly the structural problems Marcus had predicted. Support columns failed in sequence, creating a cascade of engineering emergencies that overwhelmed the facility's emergency response capabilities. Target facility experiencing critical structural compromise, Marcus reported with professional satisfaction. Engineering emergencies will occupy garrison attention for extended period. The time had come for the final phase of their mission, locating and extracting Warlord Krex while his forces were distracted by multiple simultaneous crises. The combination of power failure and structural collapse had created exactly the chaotic environment they needed for a successful infiltration. Infiltration phase beginning, Thex announced, checking his weapons and tactical equipment. Team prepared for hostile environment, penetration, and target extraction. Marcus reviewed the fortress layout one final time, identifying the most likely locations for their target, given the current emergency conditions. Krex would probably be in his command center trying to coordinate response to the multiple crises affecting his facility. Estimated target location, Fortress Command Level, Eastern Section, Marcus said. Most defensible position with best communication access for crisis coordination. The team prepared to enter the fortress proper, moving from the relative safety of the cave system into a hostile environment filled with armed mercenaries dealing with multiple emergencies. It was exactly the kind of situation where human adaptability and tactical thinking would prove their worth against superior numbers and firepower. Ready for fortress penetration, Marcus announced. Phase 3 objectives: locate target, extract target, exfiltrate through prepared escape routes. They had succeeded in turning Warlord Krex's impregnable fortress into a trap of his own making. Now came the most dangerous part: getting inside and getting out alive with their target in custody. The fortress interior was a maze of emergency lighting, damaged corridors, and confused personnel responding to multiple crises simultaneously. Marcus led the team through a service access tunnel that connected to the main facility, his geological sensors guiding them toward the least defended infiltration point. Emergency klaxons wailed throughout the facility as garrison forces struggled to coordinate their response to the power failure and structural damage. The carefully orchestrated chaos that Marcus had created was working exactly as planned, overwhelming the defenders' ability to maintain organized security protocols. Corridor access achieved, Kess reported from his forward reconnaissance position. Minimal security presence in immediate area. Personnel focused on emergency response rather than perimeter security. Marcus studied his portable display, which now showed real-time information about the fortress interior based on sensor readings and structural analysis. The combination of power failure and structural damage had created clear paths through areas that would normally be heavily defended. Primary route to command level compromised by structural collapse, he announced. Alternate approach through maintenance levels required. Dr. Yolana monitored the facility's remaining electronic systems, her equipment detecting communication patterns and security protocols still functioning on emergency power. Fortress communication limited to local area networks. Central coordination severely impaired. The team moved through the damaged facility with careful precision, avoiding areas where garrison forces were concentrated while heading steadily toward the command level. Marcus's understanding of structural engineering allowed him to predict which corridors would be safe and which areas to avoid due to instability. Structural damage assessment, Vorth requested as they passed through a section where ceiling panels had fallen and support beams showed stress fractures, safe for passage, but avoid prolonged exposure. Marcus replied. The charges created progressive failures that are still developing. This section could experience additional collapse within the next hour. Thex's enhanced night vision allowed him to scout ahead while the team navigated through areas where emergency lighting had failed completely. His military experience proved invaluable for identifying potential threats and avoiding contact with hostile forces. Security patrol approaching from Eastern Corridor, Thex warned. Estimated 4 personnel moving in standard search formation. The team took cover in a damaged equipment storage room while the patrol passed. Through the partially open door, Marcus could hear the mercenaries discussing the ongoing emergencies affecting their facility. Power systems completely compromised, one of them was saying. Engineering reports cascade failures throughout the primary grid. What about the structural damage? Another voice asked. Worse than the power problems. 3 main support sections have failed, and engineering thinks more collapses are likely. They're recommending evacuation of the lower levels. Marcus suppressed a smile of satisfaction. The psychological impact of the simultaneous crises was exactly what he had hoped for. The fortress garrison was dealing with what appeared to be catastrophic infrastructure failure rather than an organized assault. After the patrol passed, the team continued toward the command level, following maintenance passages and service tunnels that avoided the main corridors where security forces were concentrated. Marcus's structural knowledge proved invaluable for navigating through areas damaged by the controlled explosions. Command-level access point identified, Cass reported from his forward position. Heavy security presence but focused on protecting command center rather than perimeter patrol. Marcus studied the tactical situation through his sensors and portable cameras. The command level had indeed become the fortress's primary defensive position, with most of the remaining garrison concentrated around Warlord Krex's operational headquarters. Standard assault approach would face concentrated defensive fire from prepared positions, Thex observed. Superior numbers and defensive advantage favor enemy forces. That's why we're not using a standard assault approach, Marcus replied. He highlighted a section of his structural display showing the command level's foundation. The same structural vulnerabilities that we exploited elsewhere exist here too. Dr. Yelena studied Marcus's analysis, her technical expertise allowing her to understand the engineering implications. Human suggests additional structural sabotage to compromise command-level defensive positions. Exactly, Marcus confirmed. We can create controlled collapse of specific sections to disrupt their defensive arrangements without bringing down the entire command center. Krex needs to be captured alive, not buried under rubble. The plan required precise placement of their remaining charges to create maximum disruption with minimal structural damage to the areas where their target was located. Marcus spent nearly 20 minutes calculating the optimal positions and force vectors needed. Charge placement will create partial floor collapse in defensive positions while maintaining structural integrity of central command area, he explained. Garrison forces will lose prepared defensive positions and communication coordination. Kess used his infiltration skills to access the area beneath the command level, placing charges according to Marcus's specifications while avoiding detection by the security forces above. His natural stealth capabilities allowed him to move through damaged areas that would be impassable for larger team members. Charges placed as specified, Kess reported. Detonation sequence ready for activation. While Kess worked on the demolition preparation, Dr. Yelena accessed the fortress's communication systems through maintenance terminals that were still receiving emergency power. Her technical expertise allowed her to monitor security communications and track the location of key personnel. Target confirmation, she announced quietly. Warlord Krex located in Central Command Chamber with 6 personal guards. Additional security forces positioned in surrounding defensive areas. Marcus reviewed the tactical situation, calculating timing and positioning for the final assault phase. The combination of structural collapse and communication disruption would create a brief window of opportunity for target extraction. Final assault timing. Charges detonate in 90 seconds, followed immediately by team penetration of compromised defensive perimeter, he announced. Objective, neutralize guards, capture target, begin immediate exfiltration. Thex checked his weapons and tactical equipment, his scales showing the focused patterns that indicated preparation for combat. Security assessment. Enemy forces will be disoriented but still dangerous. Combat engagement probable during extraction phase. Vorth tested his equipment harnesses and restraint systems, preparing for the possibility that they would need to carry an unconscious or uncooperative prisoner during their escape. His enhanced strength made him the logical choice for handling a struggling captive. Target containment protocols ready, Vorth confirmed. Brogarian strength sufficient for prisoner transport through damaged terrain. Marcus activated the final detonation sequence, timing the charges to create maximum disruption of the command level's defensive arrangements. The explosions were precisely controlled, creating floor collapses that eliminated prepared firing positions without damaging the central command chamber. The fortress shook with what sounded like another major structural failure, adding to the ongoing chaos that had already overwhelmed the garrison's emergency response capabilities. Emergency communications filled with reports of additional collapses and calls for engineering assistance. Defensive positions compromised. Kess reported from his observation point. Security personnel scattered and disoriented. Access to command chamber now feasible. The team moved through the damaged command level with swift precision, taking advantage of the confusion to penetrate the previously impregnable defensive perimeter. The combination of structural damage and communication failure had eliminated the organized resistance they would have faced under normal circumstances. Marcus led the team directly to the central command chamber, where their sensors indicated Warlord Krex was attempting to coordinate response to the multiple crises affecting his facility. The door was heavily reinforced but had been damaged by the recent explosions. Breaching charges ready, Thex reported. Standard tactical entry protocols prepared. Wait, Marcus said, studying his structural sensors. The door frame has been compromised by the explosion damage. We can probably force entry without explosive breaching. Vorth applied his considerable strength to the damaged door frame, forcing the reinforced barrier open without creating the noise and smoke that explosive entry would have generated. The team rushed into the command chamber, finding exactly the situation Dr. Yelana's intelligence had predicted. Warlord Krex stood at the central control console, trying to coordinate emergency response through the facility's degraded communication systems. 6 guards surrounded him in a protective formation, but they were clearly confused and disoriented by the ongoing structural emergencies. The battle was brief but intense. The guards were experienced fighters, but they were dealing with multiple disadvantages: compromised position, degraded communications, and the psychological pressure of believing their facility was experiencing catastrophic infrastructure failure. Thex's military expertise and superior reflexes eliminated 2 guards before they could respond effectively to the team's sudden appearance. Kess used his natural agility to neutralize another guard while avoiding return fire in the confined space. Vorth charged directly at the remaining guards, his massive frame and thick hide allowing him to absorb defensive fire while closing to hand-to-hand combat range, where his strength advantage became decisive. Marcus focused on securing Warlord Krex, using non-lethal restraint devices to neutralize the target without causing permanent injury. The Warlord was a large, heavily built humanoid with distinctive scarification and combat augmentations, but he was clearly more comfortable commanding forces than engaging in personal combat. Target secured, Marcus announced as he applied the restraint systems. Warlord Krex in custody and ready for extraction. Dr. Yelana quickly accessed the command center's remaining systems, downloading intelligence data about the Warlord's operations and associates. Her technical skills allowed her to extract critical information before the facility's emergency protocols could delete or encrypt the files. Intelligence acquisition complete, she reported. Data regarding additional criminal operations and associate networks obtained. The extraction phase required careful navigation through the damaged fortress while carrying an uncooperative prisoner. Warlord Krex had regained consciousness and was attempting to slow their progress through verbal threats and physical resistance. Prisoner transport efficiency compromised by target non-cooperation, Vorth observed as he carried the struggling warlord. Recommend increased restraint protocols. Marcus administered a mild sedative that would reduce Krex's ability to interfere with their movement without causing serious medical complications. The warlord's resistance decreased significantly, allowing the team to move more quickly through the fortress interior. Return route through maintenance levels confirmed clear, Kess reported from his forward reconnaissance position. Security forces still concentrated on emergency response rather than prisoner search. The team retraced their infiltration route in reverse, moving through damaged corridors and service tunnels while avoiding contact with the remaining garrison forces. The ongoing structural emergencies continued to provide excellent cover for their extraction activities. Fortress perimeter approach detected. Dr. Yelena warned as they neared their exit point. Security patrol near tunnel access area. Marcus reviewed their options, calculating alternative escape routes that would avoid contact with the security forces. The structural damage he had created provided multiple possibilities for covert egress from the facility. Alternate extraction route through damaged equipment bay, he suggested. Structural collapse created new access point to exterior approximately 50 meters from current position. The team modified their escape plan, using one of the unintended consequences of the structural sabotage to reach the exterior without confronting the security patrol. Marcus's understanding of the facility's layout and damage patterns made such improvisation possible. They emerged from the fortress into the harsh daylight of Keth Prime's surface, carrying their captive and the intelligence data they had acquired during the operation. Behind them, emergency response teams continued dealing with what appeared to be catastrophic infrastructure failure. Extraction successful, Thex announced as they moved away from the fortress toward their predetermined pickup coordinates. Target in custody, intelligence obtained, team casualties 0. Marcus looked back at the fortress one final time, noting the emergency vehicles and personnel scattered around the facility as engineering teams tried to assess and repair the damage. To all appearances, Warlord Krex's impregnable stronghold had been brought down by age, stress, and inadequate maintenance rather than enemy action. Orbital pickup in 30 minutes, Commander Zala announced through their communication system. Excellent work, team. Mission objectives achieved with minimal complications. As they waited for extraction, Marcus reflected on the operation's success. The combination of human ingenuity, detailed planning, and team coordination had accomplished what conventional assault tactics could not. More importantly, they had demonstrated that human capabilities, properly applied, could succeed even when facing overwhelming odds and superior firepower. The fortress that had been designed to withstand any conceivable attack had fallen to an approach that its builders had never considered possible. Sometimes the most effective weapon was the ability to think beyond conventional solutions and turn the enemy's strengths into weaknesses. Warlord Krex would face trial for his crimes, his criminal organization would be dismantled, and the galaxy would be a safer place. All because a team had learned to trust human problem-solving capabilities and unconventional tactical thinking. 3 weeks after the successful extraction of Warlord Krex from his supposedly impregnable fortress, Marcus found himself standing in the briefing room of the Galactic Enforcement Bureau's headquarters station, facing a very different audience than the skeptical team members he had encountered before the mission. Director Korvash, the Bureau's highest-ranking official, studied the mission reports with obvious interest. The four-armed Nixari's skin showed patterns of deep blue and gold, indicating professional admiration mixed with strategic thinking. Around the circular table sat representatives from multiple species, all senior officials responsible for law enforcement operations across the galaxy. Agent Chen, Director Korvash began, her melodious voice carrying the authority of her position. Your unconventional approach to the Keth Prime operation has generated considerable discussion throughout the galactic law enforcement community. Marcus remained standing at attention, uncertain whether the discussion had been positive or negative. In his experience, unconventional approaches often made bureaucrats nervous, regardless of their effectiveness. The initial assessment of Operation Deep Strike suggested a 15% probability of success using conventional assault tactics, continued the director. Your geological approach achieved complete mission success with 0 casualties and minimal collateral damage. Explain your methodology. Marcus activated the holographic display, showing the 3-dimensional model of Keth Prime and the fortress that had seemed impossible to assault. The key was recognizing that every defensive position has inherent weaknesses that can be exploited if you understand the underlying systems. He highlighted the geological features that had made his plan possible. Most military planners focus on obvious approaches: aerial assault, ground attack, siege tactics. But humans learned early in our development that working with natural forces is more efficient than fighting against them. General Throck, a massive Brogarian whose scarred hide testified to decades of combat experience, leaned forward with interest. Explain human concept of working with natural forces. What does human mean by this approach? Marcus manipulated the display to show the seismic activity patterns and geological stress points that had been crucial to his plan. Every planet, every structure, every system has natural rhythms and vulnerabilities. Instead of applying maximum force directly, humans learn to identify these patterns and use them as tools. Specific example? Requested Admiral Yexes, a Corvan whose scales showed the deep green of professional curiosity. Earthquakes, Marcus said simply. On Earth, early humans couldn't prevent seismic activity. but they could learn to predict it and use the timing for their own purposes. We applied the same principle on Keth Prime, using natural seismic events to mask our infiltration activities. Dr. Salinth, the Bureau's chief science advisor and one of the few Zenthari to achieve such a senior position, spoke in her characteristic whisper-soft voice.
Human methodology shows sophisticated understanding of systems thinking.
Approach focuses on leverage points rather than brute force application. Director Korvash's skin pattern shifted to include silver streaks, indicating the formation of new strategic concepts. Agent Chen, the Bureau is interested in developing training protocols based on your operational methods. Would human be willing to develop educational programs for other species? The request caught Marcus by surprise. Training programs, Director? Your approach represents a different paradigm for tactical planning, she explained. Most galactic species evolved advantage through physical capabilities, enhanced strength, superior senses, natural weapons. Humans developed cognitive advantages, pattern recognition, creative problem-solving, systems analysis. General Throck nodded agreement, his rumbling voice thoughtful. Traditional military education focuses on applying superior force or exploiting conventional weaknesses. Human demonstrates alternative thinking that identifies non-obvious vulnerabilities. Marcus considered the implications carefully. I'd be willing to develop training programs, Director, but I should point out that this approach requires extensive preparation and detailed analysis. It's not a quick solution for immediate tactical problems. Understood, Director Korvash replied. But the galaxy faces increasing threats from organizations that use unconventional methods. Traditional law enforcement approaches are often insufficient against enemies who operate outside normal parameters. Admiral Yexus accessed his personal datapad, reviewing information that made his scales shift to a more intense green. Intelligence reports suggest multiple criminal organizations are adopting fortress-style defensive positions similar to Krex's operation. Standard assault tactics proving ineffective against prepared defensive positions, which is exactly why we need alternative approaches. Dr. Salinth added, Agent Chen's methodology could provide solutions for situations where conventional tactics fail. Marcus activated a different section of the holographic display, showing tactical analyses of several other criminal strongholds that had resisted Bureau operations. Each of these positions has exploitable vulnerabilities, but they require detailed analysis and specialized approaches. He highlighted specific features of each fortress, explaining how geological, structural, or environmental factors could be turned into tactical advantages. The assembled officials listened with obvious interest as Marcus outlined possibilities they had never considered. This stronghold on Vega 7 appears impregnable because it's built into solid rock, Marcus explained. But the planet's high metal content means the rock is actually quite brittle under certain stress conditions. Properly applied sonic resonance could create structural failures throughout the entire complex. General Throck studied the analysis with professional appreciation. Human sees weaknesses where others see only strength. Valuable perspective for military operations. Here's another example, Marcus continued, highlighting a different target. This facility on Kepler Station relies on energy shields for protection, but shields require massive power generation, and the station's location in a nebula with high electromagnetic interference means the power systems are already operating near maximum capacity. Dr. Salinth's compound eyes reflected the holographic display as she studied the technical details. Human suggests overloading power systems by exploiting environmental interference patterns. Exactly, Marcus confirmed. Instead of trying to penetrate the shields directly, we could amplify the natural interference to cause cascade failures in the power grid. The shields would collapse from internal system failures rather than external attack. Director Korvash's skin patterns had evolved to include brilliant gold streaks, indicating strategic excitement mixed with planning initiatives. Agent Chen, the Bureau would like to offer you a new position, Chief of Unconventional Tactics Division, with authority to develop specialized training programs and lead operations requiring non-standard approaches. The promotion offer was unexpected and significant. The position would represent a major advancement in his Bureau career, with authority and resources far beyond his current assignment level. I'm honored by the offer, Director, Marcus replied, but I'd like to maintain field operation capabilities along with the administrative responsibilities. Granted, Director Korvash said without hesitation. The position specifically requires someone with practical field experience. Desktop tactical analysis is insufficient for developing effective unconventional approaches. Admiral Yexus spoke up, his scales now showing patterns of tactical planning. Question regarding human training methodologies. How does human propose teaching species with different cognitive structures to apply human-style thinking approaches? Marcus had been considering this challenge since the training program was first mentioned. Each species has evolved different advantages, but the underlying principles of systems thinking can be adapted to different cognitive styles. He manipulated the holographic display to show a training framework he was developing in his mind. For example, Corvin-enhanced pattern recognition could be exceptionally valuable for identifying geological stress points. Bulgarian strength assessment capabilities could provide insights into structural vulnerabilities that other species might miss. Xanthari subsonic communication suggests enhanced understanding of vibrational systems, Dr. Salanth observed, could provide advantages for sonic-based tactical approaches. Exactly, Marcus confirmed. Instead of trying to make everyone think like humans, we identify how each species' natural capabilities could contribute to unconventional problem-solving approaches. General Thruck's scarred features showed what might have been approval. Human methodology shows wisdom. Uses species diversity as tactical advantage rather than attempting uniformity. The meeting continued for another 2 hours as Marcus outlined specific training concepts and operational frameworks for the new Unconventional Tactics Division. The assembled officials contributed insights from their own species' perspectives, creating a collaborative approach to developing new law enforcement methodologies. Final question, Director Korvash said as the meeting concluded. Agent Chen, what motivated human to develop such unconventional thinking approaches? What experiences shaped human tactical philosophy? Marcus considered the question carefully, thinking about his background in asteroid mining and the challenges that had taught him to see solutions where others saw only problems. Humans evolved on a planet where we weren't the strongest or fastest predators, he said finally. We survived by being smarter, more adaptable, more willing to try approaches that other species would consider impossible or impractical. We learned that every obstacle contains the seeds of its own solution, if you can understand the underlying systems well enough to identify the leverage points.
It's not about being stronger or faster than your opposition.
It's about being clever enough to turn their strengths into weaknesses. Dr. Salanth spoke thoughtfully. Human philosophy suggests that apparent disadvantages can become tactical advantages through proper analysis and creative application. That's exactly right, Marcus agreed. The same principles that allowed humans to survive on Earth can be applied to law enforcement challenges throughout the galaxy. Every problem contains its own solution, if you can learn to see it. As the meeting concluded and the officials prepared to leave, Marcus felt a sense of satisfaction that went beyond personal advancement. The successful operation on Keth Prime had demonstrated that human capabilities, properly applied, could succeed even against overwhelming odds. More importantly, it had opened the possibility for sharing those capabilities with other species, creating new approaches to challenges that had seemed impossible to solve using conventional methods. 3 weeks ago, his teammates had questioned whether a human belonged on a high-risk military operation. Today, the Galaxy senior law enforcement officials were asking him to lead a new division dedicated to the kind of unconventional thinking that had made the mission successful. Warlord Krex was now facing trial for his crimes, his criminal organization was being systematically dismantled, and the Galaxy was safer because a team had learned to trust human problem-solving capabilities. As Marcus prepared to begin his new responsibilities, he reflected on the mission that had changed everything. The fortress that had been designed to withstand any conceivable attack had fallen to an approach that its builders had never imagined possible. Sometimes the most effective weapon was the willingness to think beyond conventional solutions, and the persistence to keep looking for answers when others saw only impossibilities. Those were uniquely human traits, and Marcus was proud to represent them in a galaxy that was finally learning to appreciate what humanity could contribute. The apex predator didn't always need fangs and claws to be absolutely lethal. Sometimes intelligence, creativity, and the refusal to accept that something couldn't be done were far more dangerous than any physical weapon. The galaxy was about to discover just how formidable humans could be when they stopped trying to be something they weren't and started being exactly what evolution had made them. Problem solvers who turned every disadvantage into an opportunity and every obstacle into a stepping stone towards success.